government accuses the Houthis of undermining regional and international peace efforts in the country. The engineering team of the joint forces uncovers a Houthi-laid landmine in Hodeidah province. Educationists warn that Houthi summer camps infect the minds of generations of Yemeni youth. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fuad. The Presidential Leadership Council accused the Houthi rebels of not engaging positively with peace. This came during the meeting between a member of the Presidential Leadership Council and the UN envoy in Abu Dhabi yesterday. This report has more details.
Member of Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council Abdulrahman al-Mahrami urged more international pressure on the Houthi militia to prompt them to accept peace in the war-torn country. Al-Mahrami held talks with the United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Kronberg, at the Yemeni embassy in Abu Dhabi. The PLC sensed that the Houthis are not serious about ending the war, as Al-Mahrami told the envoy. The officials discussed the latest developments in Yemen and UN efforts to revive the peace process. Kronberg briefed Al-Mahrami on the outcomes of his peace efforts with regional and Yemeni parties, and Kronberg is seeking to come up with a roadmap that would lead to a comprehensive settlement that would end the conflict in Yemen that erupted 9 years ago with the Houthi coup in 2014. Al-Mahrami expressed to the envoy that the PLC and government's commitment to supporting his peace efforts, as well as the efforts of all regional and international mediators. He hailed the success of the recent prisoner swap between the government and the Houthis, hoping that all detainees will be released soon. Al-Mahrami mentioned that the humanitarian file must not be politicized or exploited for political gain. Moreover, he praised the role played by Saudi Arabia as a mediator. Referring to the continuous efforts of Saudi Arabia to end the war in Yemen, the PLC President Rashad al-Alimi met with the Saudi ambassador to Yemen on Tuesday to discuss the Saudi-mediated efforts to renew a ceasefire and reach a political settlement to end the country's civil war. On the sidelines of the meeting, they focused on Saudi Arabia's efforts to mediate the renewal of the ceasefire, mitigate human suffering, and explore ways to achieve a comprehensive political solution in Yemen under the auspices of the United Nations.
Chairman of the Presidential Leadership Council, Rashad al-Alimi, received an invitation from King Salman bin Abdulaziz to attend the Arab Summit, which is due in Jeddah on the 19th of this month. During his meeting with the ambassador of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to Yemen, the head of the PLC praised Saudi efforts in the Yemeni file, expressing confidence that the Jeddah summit will represent a turning point in this regard. Informed sources revealed that a number of leaders and supervisors of the Houthi militia were arrested by a prominent leader of the group in Sana'a Governorate. According to observers, such an incident indicates a deep internal differences among the several factions within the rebel group. This report has more details.
Informed sources reveal that a number of leaders and supervisors of the terrorist Houthi militia were arrested by a prominent leader of the group in Sana'a Governorate. They said the Houthi kidnapped leaders were placed in secret prisons belonging to the Houthi governor of Sana'a for a long time, as part of a wave of raging conflict between the militia's forces. This came in light of the escalation of intra-disputes and raging conflict between the leaders and wings of the Houthi militia in Sana'a Governorate over influence, money, looting, levies, and the monopoly of positions of power. Khabar news agency sources said the state of popular discontent was expanding day by day among the Houthi ranks, especially in light of the deteriorating living conditions of citizens in exchange for the shocking wealth that appeared on the Houthi militia leaders and supervisors in Sana'a Governorate, and the spread of corruption in all branches of the hijacked executive offices. This has prompted the conflict between the militia leadership to come out into the open, and each party treated accusations of corruption, appropriation of funds, and looting of citizens' lands and endowment properties within the members of the local council in Sana'a. These factors prompted the wing of leader Abdel Basit al-Hari to kidnap a number of leaders and members of the militia and to imprison them for long periods with the aim of silencing their voices and accusing them of working for the agenda of other leaders. Ex-Houthi leaders expected a resounding fall for the militia within silent popular anger against its failed administration. Salah Habra, the former head of the Houthi militia's political bureau, confirmed that the Houthis, including the group's leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi, realized that the growing popular resentment against them is caused by the hopeless failure in managing the areas under their control. Habra affirmed that the Houthi militia lacks the basics of state administration, while national capabilities are doomed to stay in homes in order to build the project of succession to the militia in the joints of the state.
Educational sources revealed that the Teacher Support Fund established by the Houthi militia in 2019 paid incentives for the teacher, but only for 1 month. The fund allocated enormous resources to the fund from more than 11 items. Despite these huge financial resources, the fund has only paid 1 monthly incentive to the teachers since its inception 4 years ago, which confirms the large scale of Houthi corruption. A shepherd in Hodeidah led to the discovery of a Houthi-laid landmine field in the outskirts of the city. The military media reported that the shepherd found a mine in the vicinity of a village after torrential rains uncovered part of it, and he quickly reported it to the authorities. The media added that an engineering team went to survey the area and discovered a network of anti-armor landmines.
Yemen, the worst famine the world has seen in 100 years. Right now, over 8 million people are facing starvation. Since the beginning of the war, 85,000 children have died due to the lack of food. We cannot allow this to continue. The Yemeni people can't wait.
Educationists warn that Houthi summer camps, with their sectarian input, continue to threaten to infect the minds of generations of Yemeni youth. Those camps are still being held despite previous commitment made by the rebels not to use children in arms conflict. This report has more details.
Houthis launched their yearly summer camps in Yemeni districts, pushing parents to allow their children to travel to the locations for education. It is clear that the goal of these camps is to change the ideology of children and how they think. These summer programs take place in different schools and locations, starting from Hodeidah in the west to Sana'a, in addition to other areas. Houthis have started instructing children as young as 10 years old in religious teachings and identity. The movement claims it will attract more than 1 million people to its camps. Journalists, campaigners, and human rights organizations in Yemen have condemned the appeals to join the camps, claiming that the Houthis use them to program minors and train them before going into war fronts. In the Houthi summer camps, Yemeni children are turned from rational people into a mindless, harmful individuals driven by misconception and violence that threaten the society. Houthis are continuously attempting to impose its aligned ideologies on the Yemeni society and use it as a point of cultural reference. According to the Yemeni Coalition for Monitoring Human Rights Violations, the Houthi organization continues to instruct children in summer camps with jihadist ideology, cultivating a culture of violence, glorifying combat, and spreading sectarian ideas. And these summer programs continue to harm the Yemeni children's minds. The UN panel of experts indicated that hundreds of Yemeni children have been recruited into Houthi summer camps. Since the start of the Yemeni conflict in 2014, child recruitment has become particularly common among conflict groups. The majority of Yemen's children soldiers are recruited by using money, and most of them come from impoverished communities and families. Children being recruited for military service in Yemen is a serious issue for both peace and fundamental human rights. Making its children into soldiers will never lead to peace in any community. Therefore, prohibiting the employment of children in any kind of hostilities must be included in any political agreement or negotiation to end the conflict in Yemen.
The Houthi militia launched a massive campaign of raids and arrests on village in Al Bayda Governorate. Local sources reported that the rebels raided the village with dozens of military vehicles and tanks for no reason. According to same sources, the military campaign consisted of 100 military vehicles, 20 tanks, and 12 drones, and resulted in the arrest of 46 citizens of the region. 5 people from one family, most of them children, were injured due to a gas cylinder explosion in Al Mahawid Governorate, northeast of Yemen. Local sources said the family sustained minor and moderate burns as a result of the explosion in their house and were taken to the hospital for treatment. Coming next. Lack of electricity service in Taiz aggravates the suffering of residents of the city. Welcome back. The residents of El Sabah village in Hudaydat announced the closure of a health unit in the area. People called on the local authority and the health bureau in the district and governorate to quickly open the health unit.
It has been a week now since the closure of the health unit here. They open it for a while and then they close it and go home. Women in the area came to the unit day after day, but they found it closed. We've benefited from the health unit for years before it was closed. The people in the village are calling upon authorities to identify those responsible for that closure who had prevented people from health services. We raised this issue to health officials who are responsible for the health facility. The unit is closed 7 days a week. We want the health unit to be opened and those who order this closure to be identified.
The continued absence of electricity in Taiz has doubled the suffering of citizens and multiplied their miseries. The situation got compounded after the local authority handed over the electricity establishment to private electricity companies. This report has more details.
For 8 consecutive years, people have not found a response from the decision makers regarding the electricity issue. The city is distressed by its officials, which has been in darkness for almost a decade. If the government does not take an action, then what makes the city shines, except the unaffordable private power stations?
In addition to demonstrations to demand the return of electricity in the city, we petitioned for 1 million signatures to demand the Presidential Council to return electricity back to Taiz and alleviate the suffering of millions of people.
People complain about the continued government power cuts in the city, which led people to subscribe with the private electricity stations, in which they practice unbelievable exploitation.
We suffer from the commercial power stations in the city, which costs us a lot of money. I pay more than 20,000 riyal for the 10-day subscription, and a kilowatt has become 1,000 riyal since my salary is 60,000 riyal and it's not enough to cover for living and electricity bills. I own a shop and the electricity bill is 200,000 riyals every 10 days. I cannot pay the electricity bill or the house rent. We demand the government to return the public electricity back.
working on restoring and repairing damaged lines and governmental power stations such as Al Sayfira station, which was damaged as a result of the war, required a governmental support like reoperating them and providing service at reasonable prices, similar to those in the liberated governorates.
Unfortunately, the electricity problem remains suspended when it is at the Prime Minister's office, and we do not know what the reasons are. We asked of a power station or materials to repair the current network. Even maintenance of Al Sayfira station is beyond our financial capacity as a foundation as well as the local authority. However, the government is able to operate it and provide us with a new 30 megawatt station whose documents have been with the government for a year.
The power crisis remains as it is and has afflicted the lives of citizens in the city for a long time. Energy alternatives were unable to ease the burden of the darkness due to its high cost, and millions of Taiz residents have spent their lives waiting for the return of public power, and it seems that there are no signs of hope so far.
A recent international report revealed that food and consumer prices in government-controlled areas are lower than prices in areas under the control of the Houthi militia. The report said that the cost of a minimum food basket in the areas of the internationally recognized government amounted to $99 and in the areas of the Houthis reached $103. Yemen imports about 90% of its food and fuel needs in dollars from abroad. The Yemeni artifacts dated to the 2nd century were repatriated to Yemen by the United States. More on this is in the following report.
According to a statement released by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, 3 artifacts recovered from a private collector were repatriated to Yemen during a recent ceremony attended by Mohammed al-Hadrami, the Yemeni ambassador to the United States, and Assistant Special Agent in charge of U.S. Homeland Security investigations. The objects included an alabaster ram with an inscribed base from Bani Aqil necropolis that has been dated to the 5th century, in addition to an alabaster figure of a female goddess dated to the 2nd century, and an inscribed silver vessel from Shabwa dated to the 2nd or 3rd centuries AD. These antiquities were among 89 objects looted from 10 different countries that were seized during a recent investigation. Because of continuing conditions of war in Yemen, the artifacts will be temporarily held at a specialized institution in Washington, D.C. Yemeni monuments have been damaged, looted, and their artifacts have been smuggled out of the country. This is particularly the case for sites within conflict areas, and the wider the current conflict spreads, the more danger is posed to all towns and other historic locations, where combat groups have rooted themselves with catastrophic consequences. Ongoing airstrikes and military conflicts with the Houthi rebels bring the threat of further destruction of important historical buildings and cultural monuments in Yemen. Each time the country confronts clashes, numerous historic monuments suffer due to continuous devastation and ongoing smuggling. UNESCO was informed of damage to sites of outstanding cultural significance in Yemen. Therefore, they called on all parties in the conflict to protect Yemen's cultural heritage and refrain from targeting by shelling or by airstrikes or using for military purposes cultural heritage sites and buildings. The people of Yemen feel they are losing their identity, as when someone erases the past, citizens lose not just information, but ways for people to talk about their history.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The government accuses the Houthis of undermining regional international peace efforts in the country. The engineering team of the joint forces uncovers a Houthi-led landmine in Hodeidah province. Educationists warn that Houthi summer camps inject the minds of generations of Yemeni youth. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouet. Thank you for watching.